Good morning. Let me first welcome the PS of Rhodes, Mr. Bugwa, who has honored us to be in this panel and will take the word as first, and then welcome all the other panelists for today. And thank you, ladies and gentlemen, to be with us in the construction panel. I'll just briefly introduce myself. I'm Rita Ricciardi. I'm the president of the Kenyan Chamber of Commerce, but I'm also a business person in Kenya since the last nearly 24 years. Oh my God, I'm growing very old. Anyway, so I've seen it all, let's say, in the last 24 years, especially in the construction sector. When I first reached, especially in Nairobi, had a completely different, let's say, view. And now it's a totally different story. At times, just tell you this little story, at times when I'm out of the country for longer than a month and I come back, I get lost because all of a sudden there is a new road. And then I have to reorganize myself and understand where do I have to go to reach home. So let me just ask the PS to give his presentation, and then we will ask you some questions, I'm sure. Thank you.
Thank you so much, panelists and our colleagues on the other bench. Allow me first of all to introduce my team who have joined me this morning, starting with our able Chief Engineer Roads, Engineer Kongo. You can just rise. The technical assistants to our CS, Engineer Mochilwa. We have my technical assistant, Engineer Mutsuni, and my personal secretary, Judy Nyaga. Thank you so much. I am aware of the spirit of business opportunities, and I think that's why all of us have congregated here today, so that we discuss or interact on some of the opportunities available. My name is Engineer Joseph Bugwa. I'm the Principal Secretary, State Department of Roads. And I have greetings from my Cabinet Secretary, who is in UK, and told me when I meet this team, I say hello. You have received his greetings? Yes, Kipchumba Molkomen, our Cabinet Secretary. We are excited this morning to interact with this team. In the morning, we had a team from the French government who are also pursuing some of the projects that we earmarked to address with them. And we still hope that arising from this workshop, we'll get more and more partnering with us. It is important to mention that the country that we live in is an agricultural country, and mainly we depend on agriculture. And we have so many links that really require some upgrading and improvement so that we can empower our people economically by offering them accesses. If the presentation can be run through the team, yes, if you look at some of the photos on the screen, the one on the left, those are some of the ASO areas, the semi-arid areas, the northern side of our where our people live. And if you look at their nature of transportation, it's really the humbling approach where they walk long distances. Mobility is an issue, and they require some support. And when we look at some of our key issues that touches on our infrastructure department, basically, we have in our country 160,000 kilometers of classified roads, part of which 40,000 is done by the national government, addressing all the implementation of the programs, and the 120 is handled by the other level of government, the county government that we have in our 47 regions. We rely basically on our own resources that we correct as either fuel levy or development funds, and also the money we receive from taxes, and also from our development partners who support a lot of our projects, either directly on grants or on loans. And if currently we are also enjoying now the new approach of PPP, where we are implementing projects using the private sector engagement. A key one being the one that is running, a lucrative one, the Nairobi Express, which all of us, and I'm sure mostly all of you have passed through the Nairobi Express, which is a PPP project. Then the primary aim again is to offer some level of service to our people when they are driving along our roads. We also would like to appreciate the support that the EU have also partnered with us in various programs, roads within our country, both in our coastal region and other regions. And currently, the one we are pursuing discussions on the Rironi-Mau Summit Road, where we have discussions going on to see whether we can reach an agreement and we have it implemented under a PPP project. Next. We have various projects that are supported by the European Union in our country, especially the ones in the coast, where we have projects under Kenha. We have Mombasa-Mariakani Highway Project. We also have another one, kwa Jomvu to Mariakani Road section, and the rehabilitation upgrading of Kenya South Sudan, Kitale Mafas Road section in Trans Nzoia. The government of Kenya prioritized, guided by the bottom-up model. You all know in our manifesto in the new administration, the issue of bottom-up, where we want to reach our lowest economically empowered people to be able to empower them so that they are able to access part of their markets, and we also help them to do business in a more smooth approach. Then we may look at some of our priorities also in this administration. Our current administration is, because of our limitation of resources, and we have sizable pending bills, the aim of this administration is to ensure that we complete all the ongoing projects so that as we gear in to prioritizing new contracts, we will have already supported the ongoing ones to completion, other than having them store as we procure new projects. And with the support of the PPP method of approach for new contracts, we will have an opportunity to be able to address the ongoing ones to completion, God willing, in the next 3 years. And it is also important to say that upgrading of critical national rings is so dear to us, because it gives people the connectivity to various counties and also international ports with us. And we are looking forward to have some of them addressed. Mainly a road like the one now from Mombasa to Nairobi is very key to us. And we hope moving forward, we'll be looking for some programs that will be able to do the Nairobi-Mombasa road that will ease communication from our country. Areas of collaboration, we have funding for roads in rural areas. We have both the river-based projects and also the conventional projects that are funded by our partners. The support in bridging programs in rural areas also attended 100 missing links that we intend to address. We also have technical assistance, that areas that have also collaboration where we may enjoy support in our research and also improving our strategies and methods of implementation of our roads. Again, with the spirit of also what we are calling the bottom-up, we intend to improve so many rural roads in the years to come to be able to empower our people. We also have areas of collaboration in designs of traffic management. That's an area that development partners could also support us in, and we look forward for the cooperation in this key area where designs and development of implementation of major integrated traffic management systems in major urban cities is we are looking for people to partner with and be able to finalize some of our ongoing programs. Support traffic studies selected in studies to enable proper planning of our cities and our major roads is also an area that we feel is part of your team can also collaborate, and also the technical assistance development of relevant spatial planning policies. Development of key national trunk roads is what I mentioned, like the Kenya Northern Corridor, where, like I've mentioned about the roads, either from Mombasa to Nairobi or from Nairobi going towards the other side of our border with other countries. Business proposals on projects is an area that will be key for some of us, and we'll be looking at construction of bypasses in many of our cities, projects that can also be done under PPP, and we are also looking at Greater Eastern bypasses, which is about 77 kilometers. Our towns, Nakuru and Kisumu, also requires some bypasses. Those are projects that can also be partnered with. In Nakuru, we have about 54 kilometers. In Kisumu, we have about 23. Then also the active mobility and non-motorized transport infrastructure for the cities of Nairobi, Nakuru, and Kisumu are areas that we can also collaborate in. Then ongoing projects in collaboration with the EU, I think I've demonstrated some of them. The one of Mombasa Mariakani, the rehabilitation of South Sudan. We are lost on the screen. So I was saying, as we work out on the weak signal, that our regional area in Mombasa, we have access to Mombasa Mariakani Highway, kwa Jomvu Mariakani, where we are in collaboration with the EU, and also the rehabilitation of South Sudan Road Ring to Mafas Road section, which is about 75. And we also have Mombasa Mtwapa Kilifi project, which is about 54 kilometers, still funded by AFD and EU to a tune of AFD 18.8 billion and EU investment at 3.4 billion. So that's some of the ongoing projects. We also have others that are completed. The Katu Nguni, which is about 20 kilometers in Makueni. This is expected to be completed in September 2023. Chuka Kanwa Kereri 28. The phase 2 is ongoing, completed in 2023. We have Kweni Karurumo in Embu, a project of about 10 kilometers, and is expected to be finished next year. So those are some of the projects that are running at the moment. And in the past, we have partnered heavily in major projects like the Northern Corridor rehabilitation, Eldoret, Talbo, this that was completed at 59. We had also collaborated on another Kenha Road, the Northern Corridor rehabilitation phase 3, Wembuye, Maraba, 62 kilometers, which is also complete. We also have Dururumo, Giagaki, Miamponi Road in Meru, 23 kilometers also complete. And we have Chuka Kanwa, which is 28, phase 1 completed. Another Kerumo, Kieni, phase 1 is also completed, 6.7. Kivandani, Kwamutisia, 15. which is substantially complete. And we also have construction of Nairobi ring roads, which are also complete, a total of 15. And I think from where we sit, there's a lot that our moderator, we can be able to address in other areas. We have various projects that are also running, and we hope that our engagement today can bring in some synergies in having other programs being addressed. Thank you very much.
Okay, I think, okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. My name is Gikonyo Gitonga. I'm one of the co-moderator. I am a director at the Kenya Property Developers Association, and I'm also the chair of the Land and Physical Planning Sector Board at KEPSA. Before we want to first deal with the questions for the PS because he's meant to leave for another meeting. So you will please bear with us. It's not that we've decided to ignore the other panelists, but I think it'll be good if we can first of all deal with the panel with the answers from the PS. So I think the next one was maybe you would want to first of all introduce. There was one of the panelists, and there was a specific question that's related to roads.
Yes, I think that before we go on with the question to the PS, perhaps I can introduce Motta Angel, who has also experience in construction in Kenya for several years. And one first thing I would like to talk about before passing the word to Motta Angel is the fact that in the last 20 years, we've seen different type of operation for achieve our project in Kenya. Start with loans and, so EPC contract. Then we move to another way of doing procurement, EPC plus financing. And lately, Kenya, I think in the region is showing to be the strongest country in performing PPP project, which is again another way of doing procurement. And my question is to Tiago, and I think Tiago wants to reverse this question again, is how does he see the global gateway have an impact on this new way of doing procurement, consolidated in some cases in Kenya as a PPP?
Thank you so much, Rita. Well, Global Gateway is a new experience, I think, for everyone. We are all waiting for the opportunities to start unraveling themselves. Motta Angel has been here in Kenya for quite some time now, and we managed to close 2 PPP transactions. And unfortunately, we didn't have Global Gateway at the time, so we ended up going to commercial banks. The overall idea, I believe, is Global Gateway to support and reduce the project costs, because I think everyone in this room and the PS for sure, PPPs are expensive. And at the end of the day, someone has to pay them. So how do we bring the value for money closer to the people? So I think there's a link. Global Gateway can and should be used for the purpose of these transactions. So my dear question to the PS and to colleagues from the EU that might be present in the room is, how do we make this link work? How do we push these institutions to cooperate and find solutions that can work both ways?
Thank you very much. I said in my team, I have the people who also manage some of our projects, and especially the ones that you're referring to. And I am happy to have the chief engineer roads, who is behind most of our key projects. And I can give him, before I comment, a chance also to talk something on the same. Chief engineer roads.
Thank you, PS, the panelists, the moderators, and the team inside here. Good morning. I think one of the areas in the issues of PPP, what we are looking at and what has said, the issue of value for money is because the companies or the investors need to get something, but the country also need to get some benefits. So one of the issues we are looking at is probably how the government can look at the areas, maybe in terms of tax incentives, probably. In PPP projects, probably that is one area I think from our side. We also try to ensure that if in case of roads that we give corridors which are free of any encumbrances, because I know that is, for those ones who have tried, I think that is one of the areas we have had some challenges. So that is one area we are looking at from our sector. And we are also looking at probably them partnering with some of our local consortiums so that maybe they can also not only get that expertise, the local expertise, but also our local consortiums, the contractors, the engineers can also get some experience, technology transfer. So those are some of the areas probably. From where I sit, I really see, but maybe the PS can give the word. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you, my colleague, Engineer Kongo. The other aspect is affordability, because you could have a project, maybe PPP, but the component of risk, who takes risk, becomes huge on us as a commitment. And you may find that a project may not see the light of the day, because if it cannot be able to sustain itself and the commitment required to support the same may be way above what we can afford in our budget, sometimes you may have projects also running into certain challenges. So those are some of the key issues that we feel that even as we package many of our projects on a PPP, affordability is also key. Thank you.
Actually, if I may, I have another comment or question. You say something very important, risk. Risk allocation is a key factor in PPP project. And I don't know if any of you was at the forum in Abidjan in November when the President Adesina of the African Development Bank in a big forum mentioned to the African people, to his African colleagues, guys, bankability is a big issue. You bring project and what about the bankability? And the key factor in the bankability of a PPP is actually risk allocation. Because at times...
the current models of projects that we are intending to enter into will be now a hybrid of where situations are shared. Like our moderators, one of our mentioned about, and I also mentioned about the risk. We could be interacting on how do we share some of those responsibilities. We could also have a PPP project, which is sometimes mortgage financing that goes for long, maybe 30 years, 25 years, 10 years, depending on the amount of money that you may be intending to repay in a specific duration of time. And sometimes they become extremely expensive when you talk about a project that will run for 20 years, because the interest based on the resources anchored on the project may be so huge. And when you look at after 30 years, how much the project costed per kilometer, if you are using now your normal arithmetics, it may not look appealing. And ways and means, we are now interacting on some of our projects where we would think, what is it that we can be able to run away from to make the project more attractive? One of them is the issue of touring where possible. And I'm sure this is an experience that we did with the expressway, where the community itself pays for touring charges, and now that offloads the huge baggage from the government and it's shared among our people. The problem is that people paying toll charges has not been a norm in Kenya. So when you tell some of them, when you go for stakeholders engagement, they'll say they would rather remain the way they are than to pay something. Then the other one is some of them will even say they don't need the road because what they have already serves them all. So those are challenges, but we are trying to identify some of our projects that can go PPP, mortgage financing, and those that we can also do with our conventional funding. Because, like you say, if you are doing a road in an urban area, some of those people appreciate when they pay and they see value for money when they save on time. But there are people in the rural areas who time is not a problem. Even riding through the countryside is an experience to them. So the more they stay on the road, sometimes they experience better. But in urban cities where people are rushing against time, you want to go to the airport, you want to reach a meeting in good time, those ones may sacrifice the toll charges for what they cost. But I agree, sometimes it depends on how long the project runs. It sometimes can look unattractive, but when you look at also at the gains, if we can be able to share the charges for construction and also maintenance and serve our people well, then we can still look at it as a lucrative project.
Thank you very much, Bwana PS, for those answers to those questions. Do we have anybody else in the audience who would like to ask one or two questions to the PS? It doesn't even have to be a question. It can be a comment. If you any suggestions that or comments that you would like to make.
Hi, good morning. My name is Eugenio Bettella. And currently, the implementation of Africa Free Trade Continental Area is providing a big opportunities to trade the goods all over the continent. How is the level of infrastructure currently in Kenya that may support the export of goods from Kenya in the neighbor countries? And if there is any plan from government to extend it, to improve it?
Thank you very much. I think in my discussion, I talked about the drawing of Nairobi-Mombasa as one of the areas that we are targeting, and also the discussion on Nairobi-Mau Summit. You see, the key delays in most of our traffic is within either Nairobi City, Naivasha, Nakuru, and moving on. So once we settle on some of those drawing of those roads, you can appreciate that the time spent by trucks will reduce by more than even half. If you look at what we need to go through between our airport and Westlands, and the current situation where you go with only 10 minutes, you can appreciate that if we settle and succeed on the drawing of Nairobi-Mombasa and also Nairobi-Mau Summit, then we'll have shortened the time that the trucks take. That will also attract business both in our country and also our neighboring countries. And also, it's also important to mention that many of our linkages between our countries and our neighboring, like if you are going to Tanzania and the rest, other than the time spent on the highway because of jam and everything else, the infrastructure themselves are reasonable.
I think we have one more question. Motta Angel wanted to ask one more question. Sorry if I steal the...
Hi again. Actually, it's one comment or positive remark, and the other, yes, is a question. The positive remark is indeed PPPs are possible. Kenya has made it possible. The upgrade that you did to your PPP Act in 2021 came in a very positive approach and a very positive view to all the lender group and investors. There's the issue of the value for money. And sometimes I don't know if these numbers can actually be computed or calculated in a way, which is one simple fact. And I see it happening on the projects that we are actually building is Kenya, in terms of supply chain, can provide, in terms of materials, almost everything. I would say that in our project we have around 70% local content. and the impact on the surrounding communities, or let's call it the multiplier effect of the hirings that we've done, direct and indirect, which in our two projects are probably around 1,000 to 1,300 people, create a movement around the project. We're talking taxes, going back into the government, you know, lunch meals, whatever. And that is a positive thing. I don't know if the government actually sees it coming through. The other note, which is a question, sorry, let me just pick it up here. Risk allocation. Our colleagues from SOGEA have a different view, different approach. It's perfectly natural. We do believe it's possible, but we also feel sometimes as investors, you know, the wish list is very big. The wish list is very big coming from the government, and the ability to negotiate, concede, agree, and converge is actually the most important factor to reach fruition on a PPP project. So what's the take on the government on this, and how do we move forward? The projects are there. Let's do them.
Thank you very much. You have brought in what you mentioned about the risk, and I think that is key for all of us. You know, we also appreciate that whoever is investing in that project is also in business, isn't it? So you cannot say that you have to take everything and someone else comes and invests and go home with nothing. Because the financier is trading with his money. That's why it's a mortgage financing, isn't it? You put in what I didn't have, and you also recoup something extra from the investment. But again, we need to have a balance from the amount of money, because we also have mortgage financing in housing in our country. But when we look at the roads program, the percentage of interest against the investment are so huge. And that's why when people look at them, they tend to have some low moods when they see a road costing twice what it would, or maybe 10 times what it should have costed on conventional contracts. So discussions are still going on because the investors also want to trade with their money, and we as a government also want to earn a road. So discussions are going on so that we meet at a middle. You earn something and we also get a road. But things that may look punitive on some of our projects may not be very attractive, where we have to store other programs to be able to sustain the loans attached to projects. And this is not a very old concept in our country. And as we interact with more and more projects, I am sure we'll get better information. And even our interaction, like now the Nairobi Expressway, when we did it, it was still a learning lesson for us. Now we know from what we've gone through, and in our subsequent projects, we will have now some aspects of caution. What is it that we take care of? The same way the investor is saying, how sure I am that chaos in Sudan cannot fall here and my money I've invested. So that's why everyone is so sensitive about who takes the risk. Because your worry is, shall we be faithful to honor the commitment? That's why everyone talking about a risk, even in marriage, is how sure I am that if I enter in this family, that I will still survive. But I know now, running from what we have, there are many lessons that we've learned, and I know our engagement are better than they were before. And that's why it's taking too long, even for us to agree on something, because each one is taking his side and saying, how sure I am. And the other one is saying, why should it be? So we are there, we are running the show together, and I know, because both of parties have interest. If you want to trade with their money, we also need a road. Maybe it's a security road, isn't it? Then you'll be saying, how sure am I that when I'm doing this road, our trucks and whatever will not be burnt when there are chaos, isn't it? And then when you load everything now, so we'll still look forward on how to partner, and we'll come up with something nice.
Okay. Thank you very much, Engineer. I think I'll just ask if there's no other person who wants to ask a question. I'll just ask a final question to Bwana PS. You mentioned that there's a huge amount of pending bills in the construction industry, especially roads construction. I think to those who are not contractors and laymen like us, why are there many pending bills? The road has been planned for, it has been budgeted for, you've been contracted. Why is it that when the road is completed, we still have this high level of pending bills? Maybe you could address that question answer that question too.
Thank you very much. The desire to have as many roads as possible is there within ourselves. And most of our projects are multi-year. So when we get things like the challenges of COVID, no one knew that would fall us. But the commitments are in place. You can't terminate contracts because you are earning nothing. People are at home not working. So you find that when it comes now to the resource correction, we have shortfalls that now interfere with our budget projection. And that way now, you may find that the administration may have had good desires to do 10,000 kilometers in 5 years. They are there, they advertise the projection. We thought that our brother so-and-so would support us. Then he declines because they are also finding problems in their area because of other challenges. So we end up missing our cash flow projections. And the desire, and when you promise people also that you have started a road, to tell them that is not going to continue and get completed becomes a challenge. Even the contractor himself, you have given him the mobilization amount he needs to prove. And going forward, that's why the current administration has brought it in its manifesto that the first priority is to complete the ongoing work so that we live within our means. And if that happens, my brother, I'm sure those now in the construction industry will be a bit comfortable, more than they've been. But the issue has been, we have served for 3 years or so under the COVID menace, and our resource correction have gone down, notwithstanding that the commitments were already there. Many of our projects were started in 2017, the one of 10,000 under the other administration. So we never knew that we would run into the financial incapability that was brought by COVID. But moving forward, our administration is committed to ensure that we run our projects diligently. And we hope the issue of pending bills will be sorted in the course of this year to enable our contractors resume works. But I would also not forget that there will be a few claims here and there, idle equipment, there will be claims on extension of time. All those things will play a key role in our management project. But the goodwill is there to support our people to finish the project. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Bwana PS. I think because there seem to be not many other questions, I think everyone, could I take it that all of you are satisfied? You're going back to your countries to come and say, let's come to Kenya and build as many roads as possible, because there is a good enabling environment in Kenya. Kenya has got a national transport policy, there are various policy, there are a lot of legislations that have been that are in place. There's been a lot of work on the PPP Act. The country is also doing a lot towards e-mobility, so there will be a lot of benefits and encouragement of e-mobility. So the opportunities in Kenya in terms of road infrastructure is there. And for those of you who are not members of KEPSA, we also engage the ministry in terms of advocacy and trying to have enabling and ease of doing business to be able to, for the private to engage in public infrastructure development. So if you want to stay, please feel free, but otherwise we will go to the next panelist. But we'd like to say something.
Yes, thank you very much. I just wanted to say something small. the presence of His Excellency, the President of the Republic of Kenya yesterday is a demonstration of his commitment to this engagement. And you can take it to the bank that he's committed to support projects and programs in our country. And he's also spearheading the urge to settle the pending bills. He's very keen in his manifesto that we need to support those people who have supported us. People have done so many kilometers, so when we see them suffer with the bank loans, it is not our desire. So the spirit of our head of state, His Excellency the President, is to ensure that there is an environment that is conducive for many of the investors to trade with us. And we are looking forward also for suggestions from even the members on the other side of the bench that you may have done a project elsewhere using another model. We are more than accommodative to learn from your experiences. So thank you very much for having me, and I look forward to partnering with some of you in our offices discussing projects. Karibuni.
Thank you very much, Bwana PS. We will now give him leave to progress to the next meeting. Okay, still we are going to the next panelist. We'll start from this side, Mr. Mulera. So, Bwana PS, yes, just give you. Yeah. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much. Now we will go to the next panelist, Mr. Christopher Mulera from the Saint-Gobain. I think we'll ask you just to say a bit about your company and what opportunities you see, business opportunities in construction that you see in this country, and how you and your company are looking at it, and what you would advise any other investor or business wanting to come into Kenya, what the experiences are and how to navigate that.
Yeah. Thank you very much. So I'm Christopher Mulera. I'm the commercial manager in Kenya for Saint-Gobain, standing in for Managing Director Kennedy Sitole, who is not available today. So just briefly, Saint-Gobain is a manufacturer of construction products. It's one of the oldest companies in the world, formed in 1665, started manufacturing glass. So we have now a presence in Kenya where we supply a lot of construction materials, and we recently set up a manufacturing capability in Kenya. So one of the goals for Saint-Gobain is to be clear on our sustainability projects, and also to have a zero net carbon target by 2050. For us to do that, we realized we needed to have a lot of local manufacturing capabilities. So we started setting up factories all around the countries where we have a presence. So 2 years ago, we started a process of setting up a factory in Kenya. We opened it last year. We've already started producing some of these products that include gypsum and tile adhesive. And so what we realized during this process is that there are opportunities in Kenya for you to be able to set up your manufacturing processes. We had, of course, a few setbacks here and there, trying to go past the bureaucracy within the government institutions, but with the support of private sectors and Chamber of Commerce, we were able to go through them. So it's processes that you can be able to go through and be able to easily set up in the country. Thank you.
Yes, can I introduce Anne Gary from Obloy, and then after that I will pass the word directly to Danilo from Danieli, so that we cut a bit the time, as we have been a bit long with the PS. Thank you. Anne, all yours.
Hello guys, my name is Anne Gary. I had done a small presentation. Maybe you could run the first 2 slides.
Yes.
This is an introduction.
Could we have the introduction, the 2 slides from?
2, 3, 7, 9. Oh. Is there a challenge?
If it's a bit of a challenge, maybe we can go to the next, and then
we go to the next panelist, yeah, and
when-
then we come back to you. And in the meantime, yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Good day to everybody. My name is Danilo Dreolini. I'm the key account manager of Danieli for the whole sub-Saharan countries. Okay, Danieli is one of the 3 largest plant makers, producer for the steel industry. Okay, we are the technological partner for the construction, let me say, because our plants are able to produce the green steel that is very important to support the constructions. I saw that and I heard from the panelists that there are a lot of investment in terms of construction that is normal in a country like Kenya that want to develop its infrastructure. And this is the reason because Danieli decided to open here a branch in Nairobi that will lead, let's say, East Africa as a reference office to develop our business here in the area. At the time being, we have a lot of discussions with some private companies here that are already producing steel, let's say with technologies that allow me to say that are not the state of the art or the green ones. Okay, and we are very proud and very committed to develop our technology as soon as possible here in Kenya and in the area. We are already succeeding in the nearby countries. We feel that Kenya is a large opportunity for Danieli as Africa. It is the time because the Kenya and this let's say this venue confirm that is the time of the investment in this part of Africa. And as we are already in all around the world, we want to be present here in Africa. Then it's welcome to be here, and we remain available for any kind of request. Thank you.
Meanwhile, we could ask Montenegro to say what are the opportunities. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry for that. I think I'll repeat again. Technology has a way of humbling you. So my name is Angare. I work for Assa Abloy. Assa Abloy, the next slide, please. Assa Abloy is a Swedish and Finnish company that are merged together from Assa and Abloy to create one of the leading door solution companies. So we do door and locking solutions. We are present in over 70 countries, and we do have a sales as of last year of 8.9 billion in the world. Currently, next slide. Currently the merger started in 1994, and as you can see, these are the range of the products that the companies that we have on board. When I talk about Assa Abloy, you may not recognize it, but when I talk about brands like Abloy, Union, Yale, Multilock, when I start talking about certain products, you start looking at your house and looking at the doors. What lock do you use? What lock do you use in your offices? HID. You start seeing us with the readers, and you start seeing us all around you. So our aim, as we said, is to create solutions that are suited for locking solutions for doors all across the sector. For us, we have certain divisions. It's important to explain the divisions because they explain our target market. So we do have opening solutions. In these solutions, we are dealing with home solutions. We're dealing with small offices. We're dealing with businesses. We're dealing with homes and institutions. Then we do have global solutions. In global solutions, we're dealing with critical infrastructure industries. We're dealing with telecommunications. We're dealing in mining, oil and gas, transportation, water. This is where we're coming up with products that are suited for the particular industry. And then when we're looking at entrance solutions, with entrance systems, we're looking at actual door solutions, fire doors. We're looking at the physical doors. We're looking at the safes. We're looking at ways to secure people and goods. So I think when I looked at the Kenyan construction market, I looked at the fact that there's a major growth that is going to happen. There's an estimated growth of between 5.7 to around 6.2 in the next coming years. And we've seen a lot of multinationals coming into the country to set up offices, to set up presence into Kenya. And the fact that Kenya opens into the rest of East Africa has played a major part in a lot of investment into the country. So when we look at it, we also looked at the sectors that could be. I know the PS has talked about road construction, but apart from road construction, we do have commercial construction. We do have infrastructure, as we're talking about the roads, the hospitals, the LAPSET project. We're talking about energy and utility constructions. We're finding a lot of organizations are coming in to create BTS towers to increase telecommunication presence into the world. We're talking about institutional construction, and also we're talking about the residential construction, where we've seen a major growth with the government wanting to have an improved and also coming up with the affordable home project. So,
thank you very much, and now we have. I think you are about to speak. Okay. Okay. So I think now we will just open it up to the audience. If you have questions or comments that you would like to give, maybe we could take a few minutes and ask one or two questions. You can address this question to anyone in particular, or just a global question to any of the panelists. Anyone who would like to ask a question? Yes.
Now the official runner.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So this is Julian from Bureau Veritas Africa. I have a question regarding, I think the president yesterday mentioned that green was important in all this development. So how do you see green fitting in the construction, and how you leverage maybe funding around it? Because we know that now World Bank, or for example, IFC, for financing a building will ask for H certification, for example, where how we can see that flowing down in infrastructure in general in construction.
Who can I challenge? Christopher? You guys have been looking a lot at but let me just be able to answer broadly. Kenya has committed to net zero carbon buildings by, I think it is 2050 or something. So in Kenya, there is also a lot of work that has been done around climate change. There are a number of regulations that have come up that will deal with climate change, and I can be able to later on give you some information about some of the legislations that have been done. Recently, the government is now constituting a climate change council, trying to promote green buildings. In Kenya, we also have the Kenya Green Building Society, which is part of the World Green Building Council, and we've been attending. Kenya has sent very big delegations recently to COP26 in Egypt, and also in preparation for COP27 that will take place in Dubai this year. So there is a lot of awareness about the need to go green. There's also a lot of awareness of the opportunities of green financing, making it attractive. Affordable housing, they have committed that all the affordable housing will be going green. So the activity of IFC in training a lot of professionals around EDGE has increased, and there is I can say that in Africa, apart from maybe places like Egypt and South Africa, and maybe Nigeria, Kenya is quite leading in terms of looking at green construction, green buildings, and how to adapt to climate change. I don't know whether there's anybody else in the panel who would like to say something.
Just to add to the sentiments of my fellow panelists, Saint-Gobain has partnered with all the World Green Building Councils to be able to provide, solutions to green construction. So even in Kenya, that's what we've done. We're working. I think there's a lot happening with regard to legislation, and one of the first LEED Gold certified buildings, which is in Westlands, if I'm not wrong, that's Dunhill Towers, was one of projects that that we partnered with the consultants to be able to provide solutions to what they were trying to achieve. So there are opportunities towards green building in the country.
Before passing to Anne, actually, I would like to ask the same question to Daniele, and I'll tell you why. Because this morning, actually, Daniele came to me and said that the issue of green, it might be an issue for their sector. So if you allow me, Anne, I just would like to ask you the same question of the gentleman. How is this impacting your sector?
Thank you, Rita. Yes, this is the big challenge, and this is much more challenge for the heavy industry, as Daniele is providing worldwide. Let's say the steel industry is one of the heavy industry and the necessary industry to make the countries growing up. Let's say that from when the world is coming, every country, let's say, base is developed on three big pillars. One is power. Okay, and fortunately, Kenya, for what I understood and for yesterday I say, they have some geotechnical energy and some green energy that is very good. Okay, the second one is a cement. Okay, but and this is not my field. The third is a steel, because these three commodities, bigger commodities, can push the infrastructures, the construction. That is the base to make the next step, that is the industrialization. Okay, this for the steel, Daniele is very committed. This is the big deal. In Africa is a lot to do, because the technology that you are applying today is not green, let me say. It also not so, let's say, is competitive, not only in terms of green, but also in terms of operational cost. Okay, what Daniele is proposing has a lot of solutions in terms of steel melting, with some systems that is called, for example, Q1, that is the digital melting, that can provide big advantage in terms of savings in the energy. That means to go to the green steel, or of course environmental systems to comply to the green regulation. Last but not least is the quality. Quality means green. Why? Because to go for quality steel means that you can have a different engineering for the buildings, and you can also have the possibility to produce reliable and in the long time, let's say, the infrastructures that the PV was presenting before. I think about the streets, but not only, especially bridges and big buildings. Okay, then last again, but not least, is also the possibility if you are going to install in Kenya a proper steel industry based on the Green's state-of-the-art technology. This is an important growing for the country GDP, okay, because as an heavy industry, the GDP is impacted so much in production of steel that will also support the possibility of the country to have financial capability, let's say. No, GDP is always the way in order to keep the possibility of the country to have more revenue and to have more financial capabilities itself to go for the green approach. Thank you.
Just to bring it back home a bit, for Asa Abloy, we have looked at how can we make our products green. So we've looked at energy that is, most of the locks that are electrical tend to sap a lot of energy. So we've looked at ways to make sure that the energy that is needed for the locks is only required when the lock is activated. And we've seen, I think in Dubai, we've done a lot of green energy projects, and also quite a number of them at Daniel Towers. We were able to do quite a number of them for multinationals to ensure that whatever energy that the doors are requesting is as minimal as possible. So we can all say that many organizations are looking into the green energy, and I think green energy is the way forward.
You are the star today.
I have a question for Mota and Jill. Now, I would like to know, for a company like yours, for instance, for roads, is now already important to have in your supply chain green companies or companies that are already implementing ESG protocols? And is it just a policy for you, or it is becoming a sort of requirement when you tender in Africa? We have to make a distinction between eligible finance. So when the financiers are looking at projects where these principles are implemented, and in particular also for green transition, on the other side for the public procurement. Thank you.
You're putting me under pressure. Well, let's split the answer into two sections. One of them, the company policy. Yes, company policy is driving towards a sustainable future, not only on environment and social and governance, but throughout the spectrum of operations that we do, and trying to find a balance between construction and all the other services that we do, which include also environment. And those indirectly, let's say, help balance our carbon footprint. When it comes to public procurement, those ones, and talking about Kenya, which is where I am, they're somewhat already being implemented. These institutions, such as World Bank, EIB, KfW, these major lenders, it's under their principles to impose those type of restrictions or obligations of compliance. To strike this out of the record, I would say that they are not always being adhered to. Let's put it in an unfair competition way. We do have these policies in place. Well, we need them on our PPP projects, or the projects that we are financing, the type of lenders that we work with, to access their funds. So in some way it's unfair. public procurement has it in place? Is it being adhered to? Let's see. With us, that's it. We have to comply it, and we don't have any option besides that one. And when it comes to access of funding, all these numbers that come behind your question have to be computed. And our sustainability approach program is to reach actually 2030 with a carbon zero footprint. I don't know how this is possible for a construction company, but that's the balance we're looking for. Other services that we are exploring in the industry sector, in the environment sector, programs to reduce carbon footprint, large-scale forestation projects, to also adhere to some carbon credits and get, positive movement from the financial side. So we are on that space and we are working towards it, and definitely we are one of the implementers. So. In terms of our unsolicited proposals, it's part of it. In terms of educating, it's a journey. It's not a leap. It's one of the challenges that we as a foreign companies have. I think maybe our colleagues from Sogea, because now we are friends, let's like this, probably share the same difficulties, but the schooling behind it, the creation of awareness, it comes through long-term dialogue, and we are working with it. We are working with it. We are bringing it to the discussions that we have with the government every day.
Well, if I may, and I'll let you finish. If I may add, I don't think we have much option when we look at international finances anymore, because I'm not in the construction as a constructing company, but I'm a partner, let's say, as I deal with international financing. And I don't see any financial institution at the moment that will let you go away with it. So I think it's a journey, but there is only one way. Let me pass you on.
It's just a comment about this, because obviously we know that large companies, you're anticipating. Yeah, but I just sharing an example that I had last week, because at Bureau Veritas we help in creating the policies, and we were discussing with I will not name the investor that is currently developing a new build in Ivory Coast, and they called us last week to create the policy for the project to include in their procurement for finding the contractor. And I think it's a policy to write. It takes maybe 6 months to a year to have, as a company, a policy to then being able to flow down this and have a project policy. So, I mean, anticipating is critical, and you cannot come as a quick fix at the end and doing your policy inside. So I think that's more, let's say, a recommendation or sharing for smaller companies to really anticipate this requirement in the long term.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the push for net zero is going to be there. Things like now ESG is going to be a very important discussion going forward. Even when you're approaching international finances, the IFC, the World Bank, everyone is now looking at, and it cuts across every industry. Just recently, it's been trending just of late about how some workers were being treated in a tea company with regard to gender, sexual harassment, and things like that. So every company has got to start now taking into consideration things like ESG and green and to be able to attract financing. And in the construction industry, it is going to be, it's a conversation that's going to become more and more important. I don't know whether there's anybody else who would like to make a question or comment. Yes.
Principles are very welcome, but we have to still remain competitive in terms of cost. And if we look at maybe other nationalities out of European community, players, they may be more competitive because they are not so oriented yet.
Okay. Yes, yes. I know the question is that some of these other countries and communities sometimes might want to practice what they practice in their own country. They don't want to come and practice in Africa. But the thing is that Africa is catching up. And that conversation, these are global companies. So they have to continue to implement global practices. So you can't say that we will have a practice in Europe or a practice in Asia, and then when you come to Africa, you have a different practice. You can't. We become a whole global village, and people are becoming more aware of their rights and obligations and what is the best practices. Yes. Yes, that's true.
There's a very simple word for this. At the end of the day, it's enforcement. Make sure the playing field is balanced to everyone. Enforcement, enforcement, enforcement.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think enforcement, I think we'll like, if we can ask, is it Titus? Yes, Titus, can you please make your comment or question?
Thank you so much, Kitonga. I actually empathize with Tiago on what he shared earlier regarding a little bit of the struggle with most of the construction companies aligning fully to green growth and all this. It's a pretty much a high watermark that we've set with going green. And the larger companies are fairly doing okay because they can easily adjust to all the spectrum of requirements that are now set in the construction space. I'm not really in the construction industry, but I can't help but empathize with the fact that many companies, especially small companies, that may not be able to easily tick all the boxes, like cross all the T's and dot every I. I wonder how they are coping. And in fact, if the panel could perhaps give us an insight into the level of, what is the level of compliance, for instance, like in Kenya, just practically. At the end of the day, if you think about it, we are really emphasizing green growth. The president was here yesterday and you know how much he emphasized that. But we should look practically around the world and the geopolitics going on even around Ukraine, Russia, and very well also the part where NATO is involved and the US. You'll find the centrality of it has to do with energy. And since the centrality of it has to do with energy, I haven't had so far any update that the United States, for instance, is willing to start depleting their strategic petroleum reserves because they want to go green. So on the one hand, we are talking so big about going green, but on the other hand, I see a lot of contradiction around putting our money where our word is. So I really want to kind of get like a good picture of how is it for the small construction company on the ground? How are they coping with all these myriad of requirements?
Well, I think this one has to come for me because I'm the contractor here. It's not easy. Setting up ESG procedures, passing down through the value chain or the supply chain. We have big players, for example, for the steel industry and cement. Those ones, and fuel, for example, Total, actually our partners in our projects. Those ones are okay. multinationals, they have a different view. They follow the procedures, we request documentation, everything is, on the click of a button. When we go to the contractors, the Kenyan contractors, it's not easy. It's not easy. There's a whole teaching process, forcing to adhere to our ESG implementation programs. Our project is privately financed, and it has an international lender. It has the World Bank providing security for the lenders and for the equity investors. So the World Bank just says one thing: just pass it down, pass it down, pass it down. But when it reaches down there, it's very hard to get the right approach. So as mentioned before, it's a journey. And yes, our ESG compliance in the future towards our sustainability program has to be fully passed down to our supply chain. And if the supply chain doesn't adhere, unfortunately, they cannot work with us. But it's a journey. It's a process. It's under implementation. And maybe the future and our current contractors or subcontractors that are partnering with us are learning, and then they will be more flexible and more quick to adapt to any other future requests.
Any other comment? But what I would like to urge is that I think what happens is that the learning curve in terms of regulations, knowing what's best practices. I mean, towards the end of last year, there was the enactment of the Sustainable Waste Management Act. The regulations will be continue to be put in place through various initiatives. There is sustainable inclusive business, the circular economy, things like that. And we are making progress. I don't know, 2-3 years ago, there was a talk about plastic bags ban. Whoever believed Kenya would achieve it, but we did. It was achieved. So there are small steps that we have to take, and of course there's resistance to change. There's always, whenever something is enacted, we try and find another escape route for it. And of course, the biggest hindrance to affecting some of these things and changes is corruption. How do we deal with corruption? And it's something that we constantly have to look at how to address these challenges and bottlenecks. But I think if there is the goodwill, and there is also political goodwill, Kenya will be hosting some climate change conference in September as part of the African Union, where the President, Dr. William Samoei Ruto, is going to be chairing that and initiating that. So we are taking the lead in some of these things. So I think it will be definitely, we are taking steps. We have realized the impact of climate change. We've had drought and lack of rain because for the last 5 years, and this is because of what we didn't look after our environment, and that's why we're starting to suffer. So I would just like to, any more questions? Otherwise, yeah, there's one more question there. Could we just take the last 2 questions?
So mine would be very general and addressed to everybody among the panelists. It's we are talking about making business in Kenya. I would like to have your general impression of what is your main challenge or your main challenges here on your day-to-day business. I think it's quite important because some have already a business settled, running in Kenya. Some of you not yet. So I think it's good to share this kind of impression, feeling, which could benefit everyone. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. That's another question. That's a question, which is a very good question. Anybody else who's got a question? One final question. Okay, so I think what we will do, this question that has been asked, in fact, I think I should step down and you become the moderator. But I'd like this question. The question he has asked, I think everyone has had it. I would like it to be now the closing remark from each one of you, that to answer to his question and make your closing remark. Please, let's make it short and sweet. If we took, it's now 12:15, and we've got, if we took 3 minutes each of the panelists address his question and make your closing remarks about what you see are the business opportunities in construction. I think we'll start with you, Christopher, going that way.
Yeah. Thank you. That was a very good question. So one of the challenges that we have and we are trying to address through advocacy is enforcement, and that is what my colleague here also mentioned about it. Enforcement of standards, quality, and regulations. So that has been an issue. So you'd find a lot of maybe substandard products in the market, very clearly, very out in the open, and unfortunately also a market that absorbs them. So it becomes a challenge trying to stick to a standard, all right, and your product doesn't move because there are other substandard products in the market. So that has been a big challenge for us. So what we are currently doing, as I mentioned, it's just advocacy. We keep talking to the regulatory bodies. We partner with, like Kenya, with the private sector. We partner maybe with Commerce, Chamber of Commerce, all these organizations, just so that we can be able to be able to have this level playing field, so for everybody to be able to act. Otherwise, there is progress in that sector, and for any investor coming into the country, there are still opportunities to be able to make it into the markets. So I think that would be my closing for now.
Well, it's not an easy answer for that. From our side, we're actually an African company. We started in Angola, then moved to Europe, from Europe to the rest of the world, back into Africa, where we have quite a footprint in terms of the African continent. Africa is not easy. Africa takes a lot of patience from you. So you need to be resilient. I think that's an important word. Kenya is not easy, to be honest. I've been here, I'm on my 6th year. It took us quite some time to close our PPP project. Kenya now changed a little bit, but the legislation was there. So we had to follow process, and the process was complex in nature. And it was a long, long journey. We did it. So one of the challenges in terms of competition, as my colleague from Saint-Gobain mentioned, we cannot really compete against someone that's not using the same standard. Kenyan has standards. Kenyan has health and safety policies, at the level of Europe. Kenyan has norms for construction, which are not that far away from what we implement. But we see different products, simple thing, on our projects, we're buying curbs for our sidewalks and whatever. And, when we ask our supplier, supply me curbs according to this norm, this is what we need. And they say, but what do you want, standard 1 or standard 2? And, obviously we test, we check, we have to buy standard 2, which is the top layer, because, we are a foreign company, so we need to have a clean sheet in terms of visual outcome. But then we see all these roads being built around us, and everyone is using standard 1. And so, yeah, it comes back to enforcement. So let's hope that this comes into play very quickly, and that Kenya gives this jump so to level the playing field with everyone else. So yeah, that's my remark. Thank you.
And you go next.
Hello. It's working. So for us, having been in the industry for a while, we find that we are involved in design stage when the project starts, and we're there involved in the design stage, setting up the standards, setting up the specifications. Then now later the building is up and it's towards the end, and they now call us back for now our part. So we sometimes find that the standard that was set in the design stage has not been adhered to. So we are having either to compromise, or we are having to maybe have it redone so that it can meet the set standard. And so as everyone has said here, one of the things is adhering to the standards. A second thing that is a challenge that we find in Kenya is that projects do take long. You can find a project of a building taking 5 years, well, it was estimated to take 2 years. So when you're coming into Kenya, be ready to be here for the long haul. You can find projects that will take longer than the 2 years that you expected to be here. Thirdly, one of the things that also is a challenge is cost of funding. In construction, banks are a bit shy in construction, just because it takes long, and with it taking long, there's a fluctuation in the dollar, there's a fluctuation in the cost of the product. So by the end of the day, you find that the construction is not making money. Maybe they go at a loss, so, or maybe they have to hike the price and the market doesn't meet the price. So the challenge also is the cost of funding. I think that's all I have.
Yes, two considerations in these fields. We, let's say, just arrived, then we have not a clear understanding, and then we are teaching here. What I can say, yes, I'm so in agreement with what say Mota, for the reason that, of course, standards has to be standards. Okay, standards is not is one. Is not 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, and this is something that means that are not standards. Okay, and how to manage this? To manage this is a matter of control and a matter of regulation. Regulation, it is in place, as far as I understood, quite good. The controls probably not so much. Okay, and this is what probably is important to push. This is one of the issues that we are facing, and this is the reason because the steel market in not only in Kenya, let's say in sub-Saharan countries in Africa, take a journey, let's say, that is different than the one of the quality. Okay, that is a loss for the area. Okay, basically, because this is clear. There are two ways to win this battle. One is by the rules, and we hope from the support of the regulamentations. The second one is from industrial point of view, means to produce quality consistently, and reliability is also a matter of good process and good operational cost. That is also important now. The second generation of the steel producers in Kenya are looking for that, because it is really an advantage. Then also pushing by the quality, they are now going in this direction. But of course, regulation and controls is very important. Second point is we are just now succeeding to open our branch in terms of rules here to establish. We get a long time to establish, too much long. And also for a company like Danieli, that was the idea to start here as a sales activity. Okay, at the beginning, let's say there is only a regimentation where you must open a branch. For example, that is a solution that is much heavy than a representative office, where is just good enough at the time being for Daniele to start. Of course, if we, as we are looking to succeed here, as we are all around the world, of course, branch will come because to manage the local operations. But this regimentation that don't allow a part of the financial institutions to have a representative office is a problem. And also the time to open an account, the time to get the permit is quite long, that we needed to work on that. This is my suggestion.
Before asking my co-moderator to do the closing remark, I would like to give my testimony, because I guess apart from the Kenyans friends, I'm the oldest one in the room, as I've been in Kenya for 24 years. And I want to give you a positive testimony, because being in the country for 24 years, I've seen a lot of things. And a lot of things have drastically improved. So you have said something very interesting. You mentioned resiliency. It's very important. I've been very resilient, and I'm very happy about that decision, because I'm very satisfied of my work in Kenya, and not only because Kenya for me has opened the whole region. We are operating in Tanzania and in Uganda, and I guess because Kenya has been my school of life, my professional school. And so I want to leave you with my positive testimony. If you are here, you have to want to be here and put your head and your heart and help us and the Kenyan friends to enforce regulation, because if we all follow the rules, then the other part must follow the rules, isn't it? So that's my testimony. Yes, you want to add something?
That had very bad planning, and they didn't respect this sort of local habits that you have to respect, because you are working in another country that is not yours. So it is very important to consider also, let's call it an informal local content.
Thank you very much. I think we have been consistent in the message that has to everyone who is thinking of doing business in Kenya, especially coming from Europe, or even for people from Kenya. I think there are a lot of businesses that have learned, they've come with their own way of doing things from abroad and not adopted to the local situation. And they have suffered and ended up closing down. When you look at some of the retailers that have come from maybe South Africa, there's some retailers that have come from different countries that have been very successful. And also even in the construction industry, when I look back to my young days in the construction industry, I could remember companies like Stroberg and whatever that were there that time, but are no longer here. So they've all had challenges. It's a question of adapting to what is the local situation. And the other advice that I would give any foreign investor who's coming to Kenya, that Africa is 54 different countries and 54 different environments and cultures of doing things. You think that you've come to Kenya, that you have been able to figure out Tanzania, Uganda, Southern Sudan, and you might find that you'll find that what happens in Uganda, what's happening in Tanzania, or any of the East African countries, you have to learn how to do different business differently, even if it's the next neighbor. And again, just to emphasize what you said, even in Kenya, there are 47 different counties. we've got a country of 50, I think we're now 56 different tribes. They keep on adding new tribes as they so actually I don't know whether the Europeans are another tribe, because in Kenya the Asians are a tribe. All those are recently there's a tribe, I think Makonde and they came from Mozambique, and they're also another tribe there. So one thing is you got to understand, but one thing is that the opportunities in Africa, with almost 70% of the population below the age of 30, a growing population that is doubling, more than doubling every 5 to 10 years, and the opportunities are just immense. So I would like to thank you so much, all the panelists, for the great insights, and I would like to thank all of you members of the audience for participating. It was a very, I think, a very interactive, and there are a lot of lessons we have learned, and we hope that this will continue, and looking forward to meeting at the next EU Kenya Business Summit in 2024, and see what are the opportunities, and hope that everyone here will have a 5-minute session to give positive testimonies of what they have achieved in the 1 year, or what opportunities they are seeing. Thank you very much to all of you. We've come to the end of this session. Thank you.